Hi, I am Tasha.
Hi. I am Joel. Welcome to Financial Freedom Lab, the podcast.
Hi, I'm currently $94,000 in debt. Of that, $56,000 is from a car loan. The car's current value is between $40,000 and $43,000, but I'm paying $1,200 a month for it. The decision to purchase a $56,000 car was tied to some complicated family dynamics. It wasn't just about me, I was trying to help with family issues at the time. So, my question is, how do I navigate this situation and work toward getting out of this financial hole? So, here's a little background on my situation. It's been about a 5-year journey for me. Right after college, I moved to California to continue a relationship I was in. Back then, I was working from home at a job I hated, there was no growth at all, so I decided to take a leap of faith and make the move.
All right, so today we're doing a deep dive into something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to be looking at a financial advice segment.
okay.
It's a good chance to sort of analyze someone else's situation.
Yeah.
And, maybe learn a thing or two about the psychology behind money decisions.
Yeah, like a real life case study, right?
Totally.
We can unpack not just the financial advice,
Yeah,
but like the emotions, the pressures,
for sure.
and maybe even like societal expectations that are feeding into it.
Okay, so to set the scene, our caller's dealing with a pretty hefty
Oh,
$94,000 debt.
okay.
And the biggest culprit, a $56,000 car loan.
Wow.
And they describe this pattern of landing these high-paying jobs
Okay.
only to be hit by layoffs,
Ah,
creating this constant financial instability.
that's a really important point. We often talk about
Yeah.
boom and bust cycles in the economy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's fascinating to see how that plays out like on a personal level.
Absolutely.
When someone's income fluctuates so dramatically,
Yeah. It can really impact their sense of security and their ability to, make sound financial decisions.
it makes you wonder how they view risk.
Mm-hmm.
Are they more likely to make like impulsive choices
Yeah.
during those boom periods,
Mm-hmm.
thinking the good times will last forever?
Yeah, definitely possible.
Right.
It's almost like a psychological tug of war
Mm-hmm.
between short-term gratification and long-term planning.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The caller explains that they bought this expensive car
Hmm.
to avoid relying on their mother-in-law.
Okay.
Apparently, there are some difficult family dynamics at play.
That's a classic example of how our emotions can drive our financial choices,
Right.
even if those choices aren't ultimately serving our best interests.
Yeah, it seems like the desire for independence in this case
Yeah,
from the mother-in-law might have clouded their judgment.
absolutely. And I think it highlights something really important.
Yeah,
The pressure to maintain a certain image or lifestyle.
for sure. Even if it's not financially sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
we live in a world where material possessions are often seen as a marker of success.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get caught up in that.
Okay. And then we have the financial advisor's response,
Right.
which is, shall we say, direct.
Oh.
Sell the car, get a job, establish boundaries, and get
Yep.
married. Talk about cutting to the chase.
It's definitely a no-nonsense approach,
Yeah.
but I think there's a method to their madness.
Okay.
It's like they're trying to strip away all the complexity
Mm-hmm.
and boil it down to the core issues.
So let's break down this advice piece by piece.
Okay.
Starting with sell the car.
Yeah.
Seems pretty drastic on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
but I can see the logic.
Right. It addresses the most immediate problem,
Yeah.
that massive car loan.
Mm-hmm.
And while it might be painful in the short term,
Yeah.
think about the long-term benefits.
Okay.
It frees up cash flow, reduces stress,
Yeah.
and allows the caller to start fresh, financially speaking. But it's more than just a financial move. It's a psychological one, too.
What do you mean?
Well, a car, especially an expensive one, can be a powerful symbol.
Okay.
It can represent status independence,
Mm.
even a sense of escape,
Yeah.
but it can also become a burden,
Oh, yeah.
a constant reminder of debt and financial strain.
So selling the car isn't just about getting rid of a financial liability.
Right.
It's about breaking free from a potentially unhealthy emotional attachment.
Exactly. And that brings us to the next piece of advice.
Okay.
Get a job.
Get a job.
Again, seems simple enough,
Yeah.
but there's more to it than meets the eye.
Okay.
especially given the caller's history of high-earning jobs followed by layoffs.
It seems like finding stable employment is going to be key for them. Not just for the income, but also for a sense of security.
Absolutely. And it's not just about finding any job.
Yeah.
It's about finding the right job.
Right.
A job that utilizes their skills, offers some level of stability,
Okay.
and perhaps even some opportunities for growth.
That makes sense. But then we have this idea of establishing boundaries.
Yeah.
Now, that one feels a bit more ambiguous.
Okay.
What exactly did the advisor mean by that?
This is where we start to delve into the psychological and emotional underpinnings
Okay.
of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, the caller mentioned feeling pressured by family dynamics,
Right.
specifically with the mother-in-law.
Yeah.
The advisor might be sensing that those dynamics are playing a role
Okay.
in their financial decisions.
So the boundaries are about protecting themselves from potentially unhealthy influences.
Precisely. It's about creating a safe space
Mm-hmm.
where they can make financial choices
Yeah.
based on their own needs and goals,
Yeah.
not the expectations or demands of others. And that can be incredibly challenging,
Yeah.
especially within a family unit where there might be guilt trips, manipulation, or a sense of obligation.
It sounds like this is less about shutting people out
Right.
and more about asserting their financial independence and taking control of their own destiny.
Exactly. It's about having the courage to say no when necessary
Mm-hmm.
and setting healthy limits to protect their financial well-being.
All right, so we've covered selling the car, getting a job, and establishing boundaries.
Yeah.
But there's one more piece of advice that's been lingering in the air.
Okay.
Get married.
Get married.
And to be honest, this one feels a bit out of left field.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It almost seems like an afterthought.
Right.
But I think it's worth exploring why the advisor might have included this seemingly unrelated piece of advice.
Okay.
And to do that, we need to consider the context of the caller's situation.
Yeah.
They're engaged,
Yeah.
they have 2 young children, and they're living with their future in-laws.
Oh.
There are clearly a lot of complex family dynamics at play.
And potentially some financial entanglement as well.
Yeah.
Maybe the advisor is sensing a need for more clarity and structure in their personal life, which could then translate to better financial decision-making.
That's a great point.
Right.
Perhaps the advisor sees marriage as a way to solidify the commitment, create a more stable family unit, and potentially even merge resources,
Yeah.
allowing for a more cohesive financial plan.
Okay, so maybe it's not as random as it initially seemed,
Right.
but I'm still curious about the deeper implications of this advice,
Yeah.
particularly in the context of the caller's desire for independence.
Well, that's a great segue into our next part,
Well,
where we'll delve even deeper into the psychological and societal pressures
Okay.
that influence our financial choices.
Sounds good. So we've been dissecting this financial advisor's kind of blunt advice.
Yeah.
And I think what's striking me is how much of it seems tied to psychology, not just numbers.
It's true.
Yeah.
Money's never just about money, is it?
No.
There are layers of emotions
Yeah.
and personal history and even societal pressures
Yeah.
that influence how we handle finances.
The advisor's suggestion to get married, while it seemed abrupt at first, now has me thinking about the concept of boundaries.
Right. We were discussing earlier.
Because marriage, in a way, is the ultimate boundary setting exercise, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about defining a partnership both emotionally and often financially.
So in the caller's case where they're living with future in-laws,
Yeah.
maybe the advisor saw marriage as a way to solidify their independence, not just from the mother-in-law,
Right.
but from that whole dynamic.
Precisely. It's about shifting from a state of dependence where perhaps they feel beholden to others' expectations to a place of self-determination.
Okay, that makes me think about the car too.
Yeah.
We talked about how selling, it wasn't just about debt,
Right.
but also emotional attachment. But could that attachment in a way represent the caller seeking external validation?
That's a fascinating perspective. We often associate cars with freedom. But in this case, it seems like the car might actually be a symbol of the opposite, feeling trapped by the need to impress or please others. And selling it could be symbolic of shedding those expectations, choosing intrinsic values over external ones.
Exactly. It's like saying, my worth isn't tied to this material possession.
Yeah.
I'm choosing financial freedom and self-reliance over appearances.
Which ties beautifully back to the advisor's emphasis on getting a job.
Yes.
It's not just about income, but regaining agency.
You've hit the nail on the head. And it's especially crucial considering the caller's pattern of boom and bust cycles.
Right.
Stable employment isn't just a source of money.
Yeah.
It can be a source of stability and confidence.
It can be a way to break free from that cycle of dependence,
Uh,
both on like specific high-paying jobs
yeah.
and perhaps on the emotional highs and lows
Mhm.
that come with those fluctuations.
That's a brilliant point. And this brings up an interesting question for our listener.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed how your mood or emotional state affects your spending habits?
Oh, absolutely. I know when I'm feeling stressed or down,
Yeah.
I'm more likely to impulse buy. It's like I'm trying to soothe myself with stuff.
That's a really common pattern. And it's something the caller might want to examine.
Mm-hmm.
Are there emotional triggers that lead to overspending?
Okay.
Perhaps during those bust periods,
Yeah.
there's a desire to compensate for feelings of insecurity or lack of control.
It's almost like they're trying to buy their way back
Exactly.
to that feeling of security and success they had during the boom times.
And that's why the advisor's advice, while seemingly simple on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
actually addresses much deeper issues.
It's like they're saying, here's a roadmap,
Right.
not just for your finances,
Yeah.
but for your emotional well-being.
And the get married advice.
Yeah.
Whether the caller ultimately chooses that path or not,
Right.
prompts us to consider the role of partnerships in building financial and emotional resilience.
Because healthy relationships, whether romantic or platonic,
Yeah.
can provide support, accountability,
Yeah.
and a sense of shared purpose.
And that can be incredibly empowering
Right.
when it comes to making tough financial decisions.
So it's not just about getting a job in a vacuum.
Right.
It's about who you surround yourself with,
Mm-hmm.
the environment you create,
Yeah.
and the support systems you build.
You know, that reminds me of something else the advisor said
Okay.
that really struck me.
What's that?
They talked about the importance of taking personal responsibility.
Oh, right.
They said, if you don't sit and say, what was my part in all of this?
Yeah.
You won't change.
That line really resonated with me because it gets to the heart of breaking negative patterns.
Mm.
It's not about blaming yourself.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the choices you made,
Yeah.
even those influenced by external pressures,
Mm-hmm.
and learning from them.
And that can be incredibly difficult.
It is.
It's much easier to point fingers at external factors,
Right.
the economy, family, bad luck,
Yeah.
than to look inward.
But that's where true growth happens.
And that's what I think the advisor is trying to guide the caller towards.
It's like they're offering a path
Mm.
towards self-awareness and empowerment.
Yeah.
Not just financial freedom, but
Yeah.
emotional freedom as well.
And that brings us to something I think is crucial
Okay.
to understanding this whole situation,
Mm-hmm.
something that goes beyond this specific caller
Okay.
and touches on all of us.
So what's this crucial element you mentioned, the one that connects this caller's struggles to something bigger?
Well, throughout this whole discussion, we've been circling around this idea of societal pressures, those unspoken expectations that shape our financial choices.
You mean things like keeping up with the Joneses, buying the latest gadgets, feeling like we need a fancy car to be seen as successful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's this pervasive consumerist culture that whispers, you are what you own,
Right.
equating our worth with material possessions.
Yeah, and it's something the caller might be grappling with, especially given their history of high-earning jobs and the desire for that $56,000 car.
It's like they were trying to buy into a certain image of success, one that's often dictated by external forces, not necessarily by their own values.
And that's why the advisor's advice to establish boundaries feels so relevant here.
Yeah.
It's not just about setting limits with family.
Right.
It's about setting limits with this consumerist culture that's constantly trying to tell us what we need and how we should live.
It's about filtering out the noise and defining success on our own terms, not on the terms dictated by advertisers or social media influencers.
You know, it's interesting to think about how this pressure to consume plays out differently across generations.
Okay.
Like millennials and Gen Z are often saddled with student loan debt,
Right.
starting their adult lives already in a financial hole.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're bombarded with messages about travel experiences and lifestyle upgrades, all fueled by social media.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for financial anxiety.
And on the flip side, you have older generations who might be more focused on saving for retirement
Right.
or downsizing their lifestyles.
Yeah.
Yet they face rising healthcare costs and concerns about outliving their savings.
So true. Each generation grapples with its own set of financial pressures.
Mhm.
But what's consistent is this underlying message that we need to constantly strive for more, acquire more, and somehow keep up with this ever-shifting definition of success.
So how do we break free from this cycle, this feeling like we're always chasing something that's just out of reach?
Well, I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing the influence of these societal pressures and questioning whether they align with our own values.
It's about asking ourselves what truly matters to me, what brings me joy and fulfillment.
Yeah.
And then making financial choices that support those values, not the ones imposed from the outside.
You know, the advisor's emphasis on taking personal responsibility takes on a whole new meaning in this context.
For sure.
It's not just about acknowledging our mistakes.
Right.
It's about taking ownership of our values and making choices that align with who we want to be, not who society tells us we should be.
It's about reclaiming our agency, our power to define our own path, both financially and personally.
I love that, reclaiming our agency.
Yeah.
It's about realizing that we have more control over our financial lives than we often think.
Absolutely.
We can choose to resist those pressures, to opt out of the consumerist game, and to create a life that feels authentic and meaningful to us.
You know, for our listener, as you continue your own financial journey, I think the key takeaway here is to cultivate a sense of critical awareness. Pay attention to the messages you're receiving.
Okay.
Whether it's from advertising, social media, or even from your own family and friends.
Yeah.
Ask yourself if those messages are serving you or if they're pulling you away from your true goals and values.
And remember, you have the power to choose.
Right.
You can choose to spend less, save more, invest wisely, and build a financial foundation that supports the life you want to live.
Yeah.
Not the life someone else is trying to sell you.
That's a powerful thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We hope this has been a valuable exploration, not just of financial advice, but also of the deeper psychological and societal forces that shape our relationship with money.
Until next time, happy diving.